Yeah, I've been busy this week. I got a couple of new games from my shelf played that I've had in the shrink. One of which I want to be able to talk about, which is called Imperius. Imperius is a card drafting game designed by Grant Rodiek, who is also a Sims 4 developer, works for EA, which I
That's
didn't know
interesting.
about. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
This is published by Kolossal Games, and the illustration is done by Gong Studios. This was a Kickstarter ran, I want to say maybe last year, got delivered this year, probably around January or February. And I received a recommendation about how it was a really nifty drafting game in which, with what you pick, you can sometimes instantly regret that, which is something interesting that I've never really heard before in terms of a drafting game that really puts you on your toes. For instance, Blood Rage is the drafting game that comes to mind for me, and that normally in the way that I play it, you just kind of end up drafting towards whichever type of god you end up doing. So Loki, if you draft Loki, then you might as well try to get as many Loki cards and build, your act based upon whatever you decide to draft that round. But in this case, there's a really, like I said, the recommendation was in fact true with how this game plays. So this is a 2 to 4 player game. And what you do is you pick one of 4 houses that exist in this game. And essentially what this is a sci-fi, like this whole universe or this planet is essentially under peril. Like the leader has perished and now there are different houses vying for control. And you have all these different planets in the system that are going to be conquered or controlled or scoring for points, for favor, for strength. And it's your job basically to deploy all these different houses to these planets and tally up whether you have strength or favor in those planets, and you move up the point tracker. So what's really interesting is that, again, everyone picks a faction, and they're it's kind of asymmetric, but it's not really too asymmetric. There's a couple cards that do a couple unique things but are slightly different. So for instance, in this game there are cards like assassins that can assassinate different specific types of people called nobles, and nobles have a high, not like a strength. I think they have a good favor cost with people. You have nobles, you have commanders, you have royal guards. So you have all these different types of specific people in each house. And again, they all do something a bit unique differently when you play them on certain planets. And then you also, of course, you have your basic planets that are worth victory points. Some of them do things, some of them don't. And then, of course, you have the point tracker to kind of roll out the entire componentry of the game. And each turn, what you're going to do is you're going to take all of the decks. So there's maybe, I want to say 12 cards per faction. And you mix them all into a single deck. You shuffle them, and you deal out however many cards per player. And what you do is you now have a whole hand of cards that include houses from your deck and your opponents. So what happens is you're drafting, hopefully maybe your cards, or you're looking at the ability of your opponent's cards and picking that card in hopes that potentially you can play that onto a planet that doesn't affect your people. So there's this push and pull and being okay, I have this guy who's going to give me 3 strength if I play it on this planet. But if I take this card from my opponent, I can make sure that it goes onto a whole separate planet. Hopefully, maybe goes around the next drafting phase and I can pick it up again. It becomes this really, really, not crunchy, but just this interesting drafting mechanism as far as how you want to build out this hand and how you want to be able to play it to these planets. And each one of these cards, again, has strength and favor. They have an initiative rank. So from 0 to 10, or 0 to 12, 0 being the fastest, 12 being the last. And then some of them have abilities. And what you're going to do is then, again, once you draft through everything, depending on also the number of players, too, we played 2 players, so the last cards ended up getting shuffled in with it's called the Imperial Army, or the Imperial clan or house that offer 2 strength and favor to any of the specific planets that it was randomly deployed on. And then it goes, around the table, everybody playing 1 card to a specific planet that you can place face up or face down. And there can only be 5 cards per planet unless if you play an infiltrate card. And an infiltrate card is something that can be played, I think can only be played face up, that immediately does like an effect. And these infiltrate cards can also be like event cards that just happen right away. Like you can peek at someone else's card and gain a victory point, or you can prevent any cards post this card that was played from triggering. So like you can place it on like a stacked deck on a planet and then hopefully reveal that, they're a lower initiative than what you decided to play it on. And when everybody's played, everything gets revealed. You line everything up in initiative order, and you just essentially resolve everything on the card, and you just edit the board, the scoreboard, how everything is. It's pretty self-explanatory, and the game continues until you get 20 points. And then there are some other things that you have to consider as well too, because every single clan has a control token, and so control tokens count towards the end of the game, where if you have more control tokens on planets than the other players at the end of the game, you end up getting the victory points on that planet. So this is a nifty card drafting game. I must say, I was quite smitten with it. 2 players is interesting, but I would love to play it at 3 to 4 because I think it gets really crazy really fast. But at 2 players, it's pretty solid. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I remember this on Kickstarter. The art really stands out. I just love the art style in general. I think it's cool world building with this game.
Yeah. And see, that was one of the things too. Like if the game is really solid, I enjoyed it a lot. The illustration though is a little bit off-putting for me. Great like human stuff, but I don't know how much of it really resonated with me. And I don't know whether that's just, I can't put my thumb on it, or I can't put my finger on what exactly it is about the whole design of the game or the whole theme of the game. It just doesn't work for me personally, and I can't count the game against that. That's just how I view this game. It's not my type of style. But at the same time, I can't also provide what this could also be. That could, It's just me, and I'm not gonna really dwell on it any more than that. I think in terms of just how it is as a game, it's a great, just focused card drafting game.
So I think what it is, and this is just me looking at images of it on Board Game Geek. Mm-hmm. The illustration's fantastic. The graphic design is kind of mediocre.
Okay.
And since it's not fantastic, like the font choice is weird, the choice of color is kind of strange. I think there's a disconnect between the quality of illustration and the quality of graphic design. The graphic design should almost take a background to help support the illustration. I think that's what makes it weird, because like I like the actual illustrations itself, but the actual graphic design is a bit. Anyway, it's a bit weird. And I'm wondering if that's where that disconnect is coming from.
So originally the logo was a little bit too bold for me, I guess. It looks a little bit too front and forward, which is again strangely weird. I don't know why, but also too, I was having a discussion about this with my friend that like when you look at the cover art, people talk a lot about how when you design, like for instance in Team Fortress 2, that you should be able to, in the distance or in the dark where you have a silhouette, be able to see that this person's a demo guy, this guy's a scout, this guy's a sniper. In this game, when I look at everything, it just looks like a bunch of cool sci-fi dudes. I don't know who they are, like in which specific faction they are in, and how it really matters, or whether I feel like really super engaged with a specific type of house per se. They all kind of look like they're the same. And to me, I mean, obviously not, right? Like you have like the person who has like the funky hair and whose face is painted white. And then you have like the soldier dude. Then you have the guy with the mask with the gun. And then you have a sword. It's a little bit like, it's just not pushing that button for me that makes me like, oh man, I really end up having a house that I want to be. It isn't defined. And that to me, like part of that world building is that I don't understand. Like the houses are identified, but I don't know what the houses are fighting for, which people can and cannot get into. You don't necessarily need to, but that's what it is for me. It's just like it's not pushing that button for getting me into the theme of it all. But just on a pure mechanics level, super neat game. I enjoy it and I recommend it.
It sounds like a more fun version of Smash Up.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
having the planets, playing the cards on there,
Yep.
actually drafting. Now, it's been a year since I played Smash Up, but it just kind of hints. Now, that's just from the explanation. I'm sure it feels different.
A focus smashed up in a way. Yeah. And that it's not just 2 decks, it's all the decks. Yeah.
Right.
Very good analogy, I think, or very good comparison, shall we say.
Thank you.
But Imperius by Kolossal Games. Cool drafting game. Give it a look.